Hello and welcome to a Firstpost PoV. If you spend a lot of time online, chances are that you noticed that something was off yesterday. Almost half of the internet virtually had an outage, with tens of thousands of users reporting that they could not access popular platforms, say your Snapchats, your Canva, and even gaming platforms like Fortnite and PlayStation Network. As it turned out, the problem was with a cloud service company in the United States, Amazon Web Services, or AWS, that provides cloud services to all of these websites. A problem at AWS effectively shut off half of the internet. The question is, what went wrong at that company, and what does it say about the internet ecosystem that a tiny problem in one company in the United States effectively shut down a large part of our internet infrastructure? Me to try to understand what happened at Amazon and what it means for the internet with my guest, Mr. Bryson Bott, who is the CEO of Scythe, which is a cybersecurity startup in the United States. Thank you so much, Mr. Bott, for speaking to us on Firstpost.
Pratik, I'm glad to be here, and I look forward to helping.
Yeah, I've been reading a lot about what went wrong at Amazon, and I have to say a lot of it is very difficult to understand, whether it's the jargon around it or the complications around what went wrong in the servers and the cloud setup. Could you explain to our viewers in very simple terms what happened at AWS that triggered this internet meltdown?
Sure. I think the first thing that viewers need to hear is this was not a cyber attack. So many times in the news, we see something really bad happen somewhere at a large provider or in critical infrastructure. And immediately we think, is this a military or an intelligence action? Because that is an increasing amount of friction that's in the world. In this case, it was a configuration error. Somebody made a mistake, that mistake propagated. And in this case, it went through what's called the domain name service, which is essentially the phone book of the internet. And what that means is when these computers were trying to look up where they were trying to go, they weren't able to do it. And so just everything failed. Now, why did everything fail when the problem was just a data center in Northern Virginia at Amazon? Is because so many of the services in thousands of organizations across the world depend on that data center in all of these interdependent ways. When it goes down, it is a cascading failure through the rest of the internet. And that's where probably a number of your viewers at home experienced some of your own services dropping out. And you're going, well, I'm not an Amazon customer, but you depended on something that was.
Right. Now, you mentioned that this was probably somebody making a mistake, but are there no redundancies or backups in the software that prevent something like this from happening? Or can a man-made error in this case really lead to something as large scale as we saw?
So evidence is always the best teacher. This is the third major failure at this particular data center in the last 5 years. So we've seen this problem before. Getting to your point, which is, I think, twofold. One, how could Amazon have built a more resilient capability? And it is a truly daunting task. I mean, and what Amazon does for their cloud service, they are one of the best providers in the entire world for a reason. They do a great job of keeping availability and resilience going for the customers and for the world, but sometimes little things are able to propagate and have these kinds of challenges. Part of what also makes it difficult is it isn't as simple as just a glitch in a piece of software, because so many of these ecosystems, even inside just what Amazon is hosting, is so incredibly complex. You have thousands and thousands of pieces of code, of software, of different systems that all need to work together in perfect harmony to be able to function. The second challenge is a broader resilient question, which is why just because Amazon goes down, why did over 1,000 companies also go down? And this gets to the fact that so many of them are dependent on Amazon either directly, and then again, where they don't know it. And this is the same problem that your viewers at home have, is you may not be an Amazon customer directly, but you depend on something that depends on something that depends on something that has Amazon down there. You're not even aware that that's a challenge. And you get surprised with this kind of cascading failure. And we have to look backwards and going, well, how could we have established more visibility down into more of this this layer that's not transparent to us to establish the resilience that you're talking about, Pratik?
Right. Now, I'm assuming that Amazon will investigate what happened, but like you mentioned, outages like this have happened before, including at this facility. So are we to assume that we'll see more such problems in the future, or will they be able to address it to ensure that what happened this time at least won't happen again a couple of years down the line?
Yes. So there's certainly going to be a very detailed root cause analysis. When something like this happens, the impact to economies all over the world is measured in the hundreds of millions to billions of dollars. That is how expensive these kinds of outages are. So there is an extreme incentive both at Amazon and all of the affected providers to be able to look that up. That being said, for the rest of us in the public, it's going to be a month or 2 months before we get a detailed root cause analysis of exactly what happened that Amazon's going to put out publicly. Are we going to see this again? Last year, we had the largest cybersecurity provider in the world, CrowdStrike, make a mistake, and thousands of companies were affected. In years previous, we have seen other supply chain dependencies like things called SolarWinds or Log4j that have had the same impact. So whether it is Amazon or another provider, the increasingly interconnected ecosystem that underpins all of our computers and the internet, there is definitely going to be a failure just like this with Amazon or somebody else in the next year or two.
If I'm a company in this atmosphere, I've got customers all from all over calling me up and texting me saying, hey, your service isn't working. What's happened to you? Why are you guys down? It's not my fault. It's the fault of a cloud service agency that I've essentially hired or I'm paying. But how do companies protect themselves from this not happening again? Can they diversify? Are there other partners in the market they could tie up with? What's the option for companies when such outages happen?
Yeah, so what you're getting at is it is always going to be more convenient to be able to put your eggs in one basket. So most companies are going to say, I have a cloud provider, Amazon is my cloud provider, and I'm using them exclusively over, say, Google or Microsoft or Oracle or one of the other companies that also provides these services. It becomes very expensive, not just in the direct cost, because at the end of the day, the cost of the services are going to be about the same, but the management of a more complicated infrastructure working through one or more cloud providers starts to become a very expensive proposition. That being said, Pratik, it's the exact answer to the kind of challenge that you're raising here, which is that what we should start to expect is plan for something like this to fail. It's already happened 3 times now. We can expect it to happen again. And so we need to be building different layers of resilience and fault modeling so that we are expecting the worst and still being able to deliver the services that all of us citizens of the world increasingly are depending on.
That also leads me to wonder how Amazon managed to capture this market so much. I believe they have around 30% of the cloud service market right now, along with other US companies. They make up, I think, almost 2/3 of it. How did Amazon come to dominate this market so well? Is it just because they had a head start? Are they doing something different that the other companies, maybe outside America, are not? How did they get this edge?
So the edge that Amazon got to be able to establish this dominant position, which is what leads to these kinds of vulnerabilities, is they were one of the first, but they also pioneered a technology because the reason that the cloud works versus, say, you having your own computer or your own company hosting its own computers and servers is Amazon was able to find the perfect price point. And they invested a lot into the research and development of being able to build very purpose-built data centers and delivering that computing power and connectivity all for a price that's pretty much unbeatable. And that's the winning advantage that they've been able to take. That being said, since then, as we've mentioned, there are a number of other providers who have joined the fray and are competing and driving innovation down at that level as well.
Are all of these competitors mostly in America? Because sitting here in India, it seems like it's always the Googles or the Microsofts who are doing this. Are there competitors coming up in, say, Europe or in China or in other parts of Asia who can perhaps rival Amazon and these American tech giants? Or is it very much a US monopoly right now?
I wouldn't call it a US monopoly. It kind of depends on the lens you're looking at. So at a global scale, the United States certainly dominates in its digital economy with its providers. But you have numerous regional providers that specialize in different parts of the world, and they have a much closer relationship. So there is local competition that exists in this. The second challenge that we have is, and I'm sure it's not lost on your viewers, as I mentioned at the very beginning, the first question that goes through everybody's mind when these happens is, was this a cyber attack? And so what we're seeing is, as a result of that, the internet is no longer free and clear. Not everybody has access to everything. China has its great firewall. North Korea is an example of, if you had were to call it an internet, it's just their own. And so we're seeing what we would call the segregation of the internet, where different countries and different interests are segmenting and aligning their own spaces. And so they're going to have their own providers within those own spaces as well. So those are the two prevailing factors that we're seeing: regional competition, and then the overall segregation, balkanization of the internet by interest or country.
What role do you see for governments and regulators in this situation? I heard the US Senator Elizabeth Warren say this is a good case for why big tech companies should be broken up. Is there any logic to making that argument right now? Or is this very much in the realm of something the companies should figure out themselves without any sort of government intervention?
This is always a tricky question. Policy tends to react and to respond. Something bad happens, and we overweigh and push back on it through policy to try to fix the thing that already happened. That doesn't always make good policy. There is always going to be a tension in innovation and monopoly. If you are really good at something and it's that good that everybody decides to buy it in the market, at some point you become the dominant number one player in that, and you start to have these issues. We have the same question with Amazon with the cloud that we do with Microsoft with the operating system, that we do with Google and browsers and search. There are a number of instances in the tech market where we have these challenges. Another example, just sort of throwing a curveball out here, is we see the same challenges in cryptocurrency. One of the strengths of the cryptocurrency ecosystem is supposed to be the fact that everything is decentralized. And if everything is decentralized, then I can feel comfortable that my financial assets there are going to be able to maintain value because nobody can easily manipulate the market. Well, we just saw an example 2 weeks ago with Bitcoin where that was not the case. My point is illustrating that we have all of this continuing trend to centralization, and it requires the government to smartly and carefully, without stifling innovation or market demand, to step in and decide where's the right point to put our finger on this lever without going too far and actively restricting the good parts of what it's bringing us.
Would you then say that breaking up these companies is perhaps a no-go zone and should be?
I think breaking up these companies is a really big challenge, and we need to be very careful where we're going to choose to take that challenge and to do that. I don't know that I would say that Amazon Cloud needs to be broken up, but certainly, like any provider with a deep societal impact, we need to be looking at what's the public good and looking very carefully at those specific functions as we have emerging technologies continuing to come down the road, like artificial intelligence and quantum computing.
You mentioned artificial intelligence there, and I'm assuming that's only going to add to these problems because you're going to have bigger data centers, more cloud services, and that's going to make the whole system a lot more complicated. Is it fair to then say that we're going to see more of these shortages down the line? Or do you see perhaps AI playing a role in solving these issues in the form of putting those redundancies in place, ensuring there are double checks and these minor problems don't happen? Which way do you see things going?
Sure. Let me start by explaining artificial intelligence to the viewer. I think this is really important because it's a word, it's a phrase that gets thrown around a lot. And I think to a lot of folks, it sounds like technical science fiction. The current revolution of artificial intelligence is one of knowledge. Previously, computers were able to process data and put that data, and it took a human to put pieces of data together and draw knowledge or an information understanding. Artificial intelligence is now pulling all of that data together for us and giving us that knowledge directly. Now, that being said, at the end of the day, it's technology, and technology is automation. And all automation does is get you where you're going faster. And I'm phrasing it that intentionally because the direction you go can be different. And it may not be the direction that you want, but that's not going to stop the computer or the artificial intelligence from continuing to go that direction. In the longer term, yes, artificial intelligence is going to increase system uptime and resilience because we're going to have computers that eventually get smart enough to start to be able to replace enough of human capability that they will be able to make smart calls and make the minor adjustments that we need to have to keep these things working. We already have a comparison in the power grid. Your electricity has computers that's continually monitoring voltage and all of the different physics from generation, transmission, and distribution to your home to making sure that that all seamlessly happens. So when you flip a switch, you get a light. Well, the same thing's going to be artificial intelligence doing those same micro manipulations to ensure that availability and resilience continues in the future.
Finally, let me just ask you about how these companies have handled things. Like you mentioned, these outages have happened before. Chances are we will see them down the line as well. Do you think companies like Amazon and Microsoft and Google, they're being transparent enough about how they handle it, and they're keeping the public informed up to the right amount as to what they're doing behind the scenes, how they're solving these problems, and how they're going to ensure there won't be a repeat? Are they being transparent enough about it?
I think it's hard to be transparent. Certainly, summary up front, we demand more. We should have more understanding of these pieces. Now, that being said, that's a hard ask. The second part that makes it a hard ask is the average citizen doesn't care. They're not going to be able to read a technical report that lists why did the Mongo database that was the specific system that failed in this instance AWS. They don't know what that is. They don't care. What they're looking for is that these folks continue to establish trust by just providing uptime, right? If my stuff works, I'm good. I'm only looking at you when it fails. And this is, again, coming to where we need government and we need to hold our own corporate leaders accountable that they do owe us an explanation. And we do not, again, not just looking at Amazon, we should be looking at the over 1,000 companies that provided all the different services from banking to how you get paid to being able to do video conferencing like we're doing now, and them also being accountable to us for how they're going to be more resilient and not so single focused in the future.
As we speak, Amazon says the problem has been resolved and that most of the services are coming back. Let's hope there's no repeat, and let's also hope this triggers some questions about how the internet ecosystem is built right now with the sort of dependence that we have on a few cloud service providers. We'll keep this conversation going. Thank you so much, Mr. Bryson Bohr, for speaking to us on Firstpost.
Thank you for having me, Pratik.
Want the facts?
The latest developments?
News that gets straight to the point.
Well, we've got all three just for you. This is Firstpost Live, a brand new show, your window into what really matters.
Don't miss it.